Hello, my name is Kirioth, and today I'm going to do a little bit of an update to follow up from the D&D video that I did a couple of weeks ago now. I think it was a couple of weeks ago. Yeah, it was a couple of weeks ago. Because over the last 2 weeks, a lot has actually changed for the character. A lot has changed for my insane paladin / warlock. And there's been enough development that she is not the same as she was when I made that video, to quite a significant degree. So I explained last time how she'd gone insane, like what that manifested as, kind of the history that she has in terms of gods and death, and kind of her very depressing and really quite awful backstory. But the last 2 weeks, the sessions that we've had have like heralded a major shift away from being as like self-destructive as she was, which is really nice, and it's an organic thing. It's something I was hoping would happen, but I also didn't want to just completely push it, because I don't think that's... I wouldn't like to do that to a character that's had so much development based entirely on, you know, just dice rolls, just things that have happened in game. But that is the way that things have gone naturally, like the way that things have played out. So we decided to go back to the arena, like the fighting pit where she was raised. And she'd given her real name, which was a stupid idea, but she didn't know what else to do, you know, being back where she'd been fighting for years and years and years, and somewhere that she hated, and this is the place where the person that she had a relationship with died. It was a lot to take in, and she was just kind of flustered. She gave her real name, which changed how the tournament worked that we entered. So the original idea was to enter the tournament, win it, and speak to the pit owner. There was no intention to kill the pit owner, or to have a go at the pit owner, so to speak. She just wanted to find out how to get back to her home city that she hadn't been to for 30-something years, and see if there was a way to like get smuggled into that place. It was trying to find connections, to try and get in without alerting anyone, to see if she could drum up support and basically return to the city that she was smuggled out of, because she kind of thought that actually if she just turned up at the gates it would cause civil war. That was the whole reason she was created in the first place, by she was messed with as a tiny baby by a god in order to create, you know, chaos and just to cause havoc in this city where she should have grown up, but she was smuggled away from. So she didn't want to just go straight back. She wanted to find like a sneaky route in, try and see if there were people who would be on her side, to try and approach it that way. It didn't work out like that in the slightest, because when we actually got to the pits, we entered the competition, and her giving her real name completely altered the competition in every way. So it was supposed to be 4 teams of 4 fighting various monsters, and whoever prevailed, whoever killed the last thing, won. Because Sheer had come back, she was introduced as being the fighter that, you know, she'd been introduced as years and years and years ago, and the last round went from the 4 teams fighting against a dragon, a young dragon, but a dragon nonetheless, and whoever got the last hit, like whoever got the finishing blow, would get the prize money. It turned into that still happened, but also for 30,000 gold you could take my character's head. If you killed her and took her head, you got 30,000 gold. That was quite bad. That was rough. I'm really glad I didn't use any spell slots up until that particular moment, because I used a lot of resources just trying to stay alive. She still nearly died. There were a couple of moments in that fight that by themselves kind of altered the way the character thinks slightly. The first thing was that the other 3 teams, it was 4 teams of 4 for the first couple of rounds. For the final round, it was 1 team of 4, which was our party, and 3 teams of 2. Now, of those 3 teams of 2, when the like ultimatum was given, when it was take that half-orc's head and you get 30,000 gold, 2 of those teams refused to do so. They flat out just said, no, we're not doing that. That is completely dishonourable. That's not what we signed up for. We're not doing it. That is largely down to the fact that our artificer spoke very well to one of the teams before that like fight happened, before the tournament even started really, and our monk spoke to the other team, and despite having god awful terrible charisma, said all of the right things, so the roles didn't really matter that much. He said all the right things, and he was incredibly respectful and respected their tradition because he was from the same part of the world from them, and as such they also decided this was not honourable. So it became actually like our party and half of each team defending my character as opposed to trying to kill her. She still nearly died because an assassin smacked her when she was unconscious and crit her, and she has 56 health and the assassin dealt 54 damage, which was real close and not ideal, but she didn't die. She didn't get killed, and she did get revenge on that assassin, but in a really awful way. So the first thing that like really altered her mindset a bit and caused a bit of sanity to break back through was the fact that of this group of people that she'd never met before today, you know, like 2/3 of them refused to fight against her because they thought it was dishonourable and they didn't want to fight her just because they were being paid to. That made her feel as though she was actually respected, like as though, you know, maybe actually everyone doesn't think I'm worthy of just killing on sight because of what I am, which had, you know, a good effect on her mind. Then killing the assassin. The assassin had 1 health. Everyone beat the shit out of her. Like, she wrecked my character and then like nearly killed her, very nearly killed her. It was 2 health off killing her. And she could have been killed by anyone else, but instead she was held in place so that my character could kill her. Which, even as that was happening, I was like, man, that's kind of harsh. That's a bit rough. And then I had my character killed her in a really brutal way. Like, she could have just stabbed her, could have just taken her head off, something nice, quick, simple, you know, just as simple, you nearly killed me, you shall die. What she actually did was drive her, like, massive glaive into their chest, lever them into the air, reach up, hold their face, and then Eldritch blast them through the face and out the back of the head, which was unnecessarily brutal and gruesome. There was no need for that at all. Like, there was absolutely no need for it. And after I did it, I was like, kind of out of character. I was like, that was harsh. Like, that was kind of funny, but a bit brutal. In character, genuinely just felt a bit bad. I was like, there was no need for that. I don't know why I just did that. That was really off. Like, what the fuck? Why would you do that to someone else, even if they've just hurt you? There's no need for that. Like, it just felt petty and vindictive, which was kind of another turning point because I realised that a lot of the kills that my character's been doing recently have been very petty and vindictive. I mean, in a fight not that long ago, she intimidated someone into running away. Like, she actively stared them down and said, if you leave now, I will not tear out your spine. You better leave now. And they were like, okay, I'm going to leave. They turned around to run away, and because they ran away, I got an attack of opportunity, so she killed him. Now, that is a really unfair, horrible thing to do. Like, you can't say to someone, run, or I'll kill you, and then when they run, go, only kidding, I'm going to kill you anyway. That's not, like, my character was chaotic neutral. Like, she was mostly just trying to survive and trying to help her party, but she didn't really care about anyone else. That's not like neutral behaviour. That is well towards just full-on evil. Like, there's no excuse for that. There's no reason for that. That person was no longer a threat. They had dropped their weapon and were running away. They were not going to cause any more issues for anyone. They were just a hired thug who decided to go home early, stabbed them in the back and killed them anyway. So, killing the assassin in, like, the most over-the-top brutal way that I could, I was like, oh man, that was garbage behaviour. What the fuck? Like, why did I just do that? That was really awful. And that was kind of a bit of a catalyst as well, because that got my character a severe look off one of the other characters, the cleric, who, like, my character has had really, like, deep feelings for this cleric for, like, a good couple of months, because she's all messed up. Like, she doesn't have any, she has no frame of reference for what it means to like, love someone for a good reason. So previously, she's had one relationship before in her life, which was just that person took care of her. Now, someone else has come along who also takes care of her, and she's so underdeveloped in terms of, like, the emotional maturity is so lacking that it's just like, this person really cares for me. Oh, that must mean that it's the same as before. So she's just fallen in love with someone, not because they've shown any interest at all, but because they actively try to protect her and make her safe. Which, you know, that's that's down to her lack of development and her upbringing and her complete lack of experience in life in general. But that cleric like gave her a proper look of total disappointment and a kind of, oh, we've lost you sort of look. And I did check and I was like, would I see that happening? Would I see that look being given? And it's like, yes, you would definitely see that. Okay. Now she feels extra awful. She felt awful anyway, because it was like, these random strangers, these random people have decided to fight on your side, to respect you as a warrior and as a person, as opposed to go after your head. And you've just done something like vulgar and unnecessary. And the person that you care about most has just given you like the stare of, I am disappointed in your actions. That was like the start of a bunch of things that have shifted her back towards being like not completely sane, because we decided that it's not curable. Like, she can get a bit better, but she's never going to be unfractured again. She has essentially two minds, two personalities at all times now. There's not really any way to go back on that. But it shifted her back towards being more considerate and careful. Now, following all of that, like, the fight ended, the dragon was killed by one of the other teams. Fine, don't care about the gold, that's not why we're there to begin with. She challenged the pit owners to a fight, which I didn't think would work, but it did. Had a one-on-one duel with I think it was like the equivalent of like a level 13 or something. I can't remember what the CR rating of the guy was, but it was close. It was pretty close. I think at the end of the fight, when he only didn't die because I specified non-lethal, I had 5 health, and I'm pretty sure in my notebook it had been I think it was like 150 damage that I dealt to him to get him down to that. So it was a close fight. I had inspiration, like I had DM inspiration from giving her real name when we first got to the pits. If I had to use that inspiration to make sure that I didn't go down, because at one point I had like 8 health and I had 18 health and he dealt 18 damage, so I forced a reroll using the inspiration, and so he only dealt 13 damage and I was able to take him out in the next round. It was really close. But even that was like, the choice was given of, you either kill him or you can try and talk to him and get some information from him. And I chose to talk to him because I wanted to know, like, basically my character's backstory, because everything that we'd assumed up until that point, like, everything that she'd assumed and had been told had turned out to be not true. And now the rest of the party were like, what the hell is going on? Like, how does any of this work? So we wanted to know what happened, like, who was responsible for everything and anything that had happened to her. So instead of killing him, she questioned him and then she just let him live. She decided that really today had been full of enough awful killing. She'd nearly died twice herself, once to the assassin and once to the pit owner himself. She didn't want to continue that cycle on that day. She was just done with the whole thing, the whole place. And so she spared him, which turned out to be a really good idea, because if she'd killed him, that would have been the point where she full-on became corrupted by madness and stopped speaking to her god and instead started speaking to the god of madness, pretending to be her god. So I'm kind of glad I did that. But that was like a kind of a nice point of recovery slightly, because instead of it being this mad descending, like just this nosedive into complete evil, insane behaviour, it kind of gave the opportunity for the more kind of sane and sensible part of her to kind of apply the brakes a little bit. So that was a good start to her starting to feel a bit different, and she did genuinely start thinking to herself and was like, I think I'm going down the wrong path, I think I'm losing my shit, this is not good. We went straight to Orc territory after that, because it was only like an hour away from the arena. So we went straight to Orc territory. We were guided into the Orc city, which is actually 3 cities, which is like clustered around a massive portal that can be turned on and off to go to all the plains, which is badass. And she didn't even attempt to hide to get in. She just went straight up to one of the border outposts and just said, "This is me. I know that you've heard about me. what are we going to do about it? Because we chased someone towards orc territory. Someone saw her doing magic, an orc saw her doing magic, and immediately took off to tell, you know, the leadership that, hey, there's this orc that can do magic again. We thought that they were gone, or that they didn't exist, but they absolutely do. That was like part of the reason that we went there to begin with. And so we got escorted in, but again, no one took weapons. Like, no one tried to stop us from having our gear or anything. And every question that she asked of the orc guards that she was with, they just answered. And at that point, it was like, okay, so outside of this city, everything seemingly wants to just, like, no one can be trusted. People just want me dead for just existing. But these people who have more cause to dislike me than anything else because of the potential destabilisation of their entire society, they're actually okay. They're not forming opinions. They have quite specifically said, we're not paid to have opinions. We're paid to, you know, our duty is to get you to our leader so you can speak to him. That is exactly what we're doing, and that's it. And we'll answer any of your questions. That was like another point where it was like, hang on a second, that being reasonable is helping a far more than, like, blasting people to pieces with Eldritch Blast. And these people aren't awful. They're not horrible. They don't want me dead. It was like, and then again, like another kind of little push back to being a bit more normal, because in that situation there's nothing to be like kind of irrational or erratic about. When you're just faced with, we've been told to escort you, we are going to escort you, you can keep your weapons, keep your armor, and we'll answer anything you've got. I mean, what do you, there's no course there for being insane. It's just, that's what's happening. You know, you could attack them or something, but she's not that kind of insane. She's never been that kind of insane. She's been erratic, and she's been kind of, she'll push to see what reactions people have to things, but she's not like, she's not stupid insane. Stupid insane is boring and irritating. Stupid insane is, oh, you find a button that quite clearly sets off a trap, I'm going to push it. Like, that's stupid insane. She's never been stupid insane. She's just been erratic and, like, confused as to what she's thinking about. So we kind of had that whole journey where no one judged her, no one, like, tried to have her arrested or killed or anything like that. When we actually got to speak to the leader of the orcs, who, I can't remember how to pronounce his name in Orcish. Basically, in this world, orc names are either descriptors, like earned descriptors, or they are like aspirations. So the Lord of Orcs, his name literally translates in Orcish to common as Lord of Orcs. So that was something else as well. Sheer, my paladin, her name doesn't mean anything. It's never meant anything. It doesn't have its own meaning. It's just a name, which is really odd for half-orcs and orcs. They all go by the same naming convention of either an earned descriptor or an aspiration. And sheer is just nothing. It doesn't mean anything. So that was like always a weird thing. And in talking to the pit owner, it was like, he referenced a name that she didn't recognise, but it was similar to her name, but it actually had a meaning. So there was now a thing where it was like, through this whole journey, she was also starting to think, okay, everything I knew about who sold me to the pit, it turned out to be a father, by the way, that was wrong. The person who freed me from the pit, she thought that was her father, but it wasn't, except it turns out it kind of was, so that was wrong. Like, all of it was incorrect. Every little bit of what she believed about her past was inaccurate in some way. And so that also started the catalyst of, is my name even my name? Like, what is that? Is it a real name? Is it a name that the pit owner gave? Is it like a mispronunciation, a mistranslation? What should it be? Like, should it be something different? So there was all these, like, questions as she went into talking to the Lord of Orcs, and I decided as soon as we got to the Orcish city, which is massively, like, technologically advanced and awesome. It's like, it's such a cool twist on, like, the savage orc things. They pretend to be savage to the outside world. Like, they pretend to still be, like, raiding savage normal orcs, but their inability to use magic has spurred them to try and find technological ways around it and to hoard magical items like you wouldn't believe. So they have, like, an entire developed city. They have weapons that are mechanically assisted. they are a hugely developed society, but they just pretend not to be. And all of their like biggest achievements are hidden away, so that they are essentially always being like they're always being judged as inferior as to what they actually are, which is an excellent strategy when you don't have a massive empire but you still want to remain kind of relatively undisturbed, which is what they were going for. So like talking to the Lord of Orcs, I decided straight away that there was going to be no lying. She just said everything. It was like, okay, this is literally everything I know about everything I can do. I will demonstrate it for you. I will hide none of what's happened to me, none of where I get these powers from, none of what they can do, none of what I've used them for. It was basically recounting her entire life story from start to finish. I didn't actually do it in character, because that would have taken fucking forever. Instead, I just said she tells him literally everything, because that was the best way to do it. There are a couple of persuasion rolls, a couple of charisma checks, a bit of assistance given by the monk, who also helped with kind of identifying certain things about the Mad King, stuff like that. And it went really well, because it was like the rolls weren't terrible. I mean, I've got +5 to persuasion, and I think I rolled like 14s every time, so it was a solid like keeping like a 19 for persuasion every time. So it was going well. It was working nicely. And then it turned out that the advisor that we'd assumed was just an advisor was another orc. Well, we knew he was another orc, but we thought just an advisor to the Lord of Orcs, just an advisor to the ruler. That turned out to actually be Shear's father, like my character's father, but disguised. And it turns out, in a way, she was right and wrong at the same time about what she knew. Her father had managed to find a entrance to the Plane of Madness. So the place that she's been to once before, he went to the Plane of Madness, became completely corrupted by it, and was essentially being used as a puppet by the Mad King. The actual god of madness was using this orc as a puppet in the material plane, and he was both insane and not insane. When he sold Shear to the slaver, he was like losing his shit. He was almost completely gone. But when Shear was released from the pit, it was because he had managed to break out of his own mind. Like, he had managed to break through the insanity and go and free her. So she had 2 names to go off, which was Yotgar, which means your god, and Frey Umbrox, which means skilled diplomat. So skilled diplomat was what he used to be, what he should have been, and Yotgar was the name that he used when he got back from the Plane of Madness, having been corrupted by it, which just translates to your god. She knew that your god had sold her to the pits, but she didn't really know whether that was her father or not, and then it turned out it was. But she also knew that your god had, in fact, freed her from the pits, which made no sense. And it turns out he technically had, but it was his old personality, like his own mind, had managed to come back just briefly and had come to set her free. So we had to kill him, which wasn't great. He was massive. He beat the shit out of us. We lost a party member. The artificer died, which was really bad. Luckily, we managed to... Well, the cleric managed to res him nice and quickly. But yeah, there was one point where 3 of us were unconscious. It was looking real rough. But killed him. Fine. Not great. She didn't really want to kill her own father. She kind of wanted to speak to him in some capacity, but wasn't really able to because he was so far gone. And that was like another turning point. It was like oh, by the way, if you continue going down this path of just nosediving into madness, you're going to end up like that, and that's really bad. Like, that is totally fucked up. That is someone who used to be like the right hand to the Lord of Orcs. He used to be someone who was respected and someone who had power and influence and was incredibly good at what he did, and he just became completely corrupted and was actively attempting to hurt his own family. That was like yet another point. It's like so many little build-ups, being shown respect in the pits, realising that there was no reason to brutally murder someone, being shown disappointment by the party for how she behaved, actually showing mercy to the pit owner, then finding, that the orcs were accepting of her instead of just attempting to kill her, and then finding that her father was there and was completely corrupted. It's like a whole, like a cascade of stuff that just sort of pushed her away from chasing insanity and instead going, oh, this is a really bad idea. This really, really is not good. And in the end, we did kill him, which was fine. We rezzed our artificer, which was good. I felt so bad that he died. It was so bad. It was so awful. I hated it. And the Lord of Orcs nearly did die. He got caught in an AoE, but it's fine because I healed him with lay on hands, so it was good. But that then meant that we had successfully spoken to the orcs. We'd successfully negotiated with the leader, just through being completely honest. They believed what we were saying about like an invasion by the Mad King. So we had them as allies, and the Lord of Orcs and his son, who was due to take over from him when he eventually dies of old age, they both kind of accepted Sheer for being, an actual, well, like a part of Orcish society at this point, which is something that had a huge effect on her again. It's like being accepted by your own kind after believing fervently that you would never get to see your own kind again without being either exiled or killed. That's kind of a big thing. She was also offered a position in their military, which she accepted, which was cool, because now she's a general, which also means that we got to go to the army and be like, we want 4 magic weapons and 4 magic armors, please. And they went, there you go, take them. Thank you, my lord. It's like, yes, nice. And she got a new name, which is really awesome, because I don't know how common it is to have a new name for a character partway through a campaign, but she now has a new name. Sheer didn't mean anything. She didn't like the name Sheer. By the time she left the pits for the second time, she didn't like the name Sheer, because it always came with the Undying afterwards. She was Sheer the Undying because you could beat the shit out of her, and thanks to Relentless Endurance, the Orcish racial trait, and Lay on Hands, it meant she could stand back up after even, being repeatedly beaten the shit out of. Which is, like, really awful and horrible. She didn't like that name anymore, and then she found that her father is the one who called her that, and that her mother called her something different. Her mother is in the city somewhere. The way the session ended, I'm going to be speaking to the mother next session, but because orc names are earned descriptors, she came back to the orcs, she told them all about herself, she told them, how magic works, how it was given to her, and gave them the information they need to avert civil war, because they were close to civil war, because one half of the orcish population thought she was the future of their race and the other half thought she was an abomination, and it was getting close to those two factions fighting. But the way that she presented everything and the honesty that she provided meant that they could actually spin it as a positive thing for their people as a whole. So she went from being called Sheer, which has no meaning, and she doesn't like that name. It's the name her father gave her, and it's the name that was used in the pits, so it's out. She didn't want it anymore. And she was given a new name by the Lord of Orcs, the ruler of all orcs. And if you can't use a name given by a leader of an entire race, what name can you use? Which translates from Orcish, which is the Orcish is Shrey Tala, and it translates to she who saved the orcs, which is awesome. And she's now like stepped back from being mental. She's kind of managed to get it under control. She's reined it in a lot, because she's gone from feeling very lost and not really knowing what she's doing outside of this kind of single-minded drive to obtain as much power as possible to face the Mad King, to finding herself being accepted by her own race and being trusted enough that they are willing to give her a position of power and to support her in battle against an actual god. It's like I kind of put it to Mike, the DM, that she's spent a long time trying to convince herself that she's strong, but she's never really believed it. And then in the space of like a week in game time, she has discovered that actually other people believe that she's strong, and other people actually think that she's capable, and that the acceptance of her and the way she is has kind of driven her away from chasing kind of more power and more madness, because she doesn't actually need that to do what she needs to do at this point. She knows that she can actually manage it herself. So yeah, it's the end of her personal arc. Each of the characters has a personal arc. We've had the Artificer, we are partway through the Monk, and we are about to go and sort out the Cleric's personal arc. So it's the end of my character's personal arc, but it's very satisfying, and I'm really happy we managed to get through all of it, because she's gone from just being like just a bit like an actual freak gladiator who was only a gladiator because she was a freak, and feeling completely unaccepted and unwanted by society as a whole, to genuinely feeling like she is something and is someone and has a name and a purpose she can be proud of. So yeah, it's cool. I really like the way that she has developed, because she went from having aspirations of protecting people to becoming so erratic and so deranged that she was incapable of doing so, to then finding that she had enough strength of her own, and also had enough belief from other people that she was able to break out of it a bit. So she's still got two personalities. She's still kind of got two minds in one body. She's not like cured of madness. She's not sane, so to speak, but she is a lot more capable of acting rationally, and a lot more capable of being what she believes she needs to be to get the job done, which I don't think she would have been had she continued going down the route she was going. And the fact that it's been like just something that has happened over the course of the story, that it's just something that has kind of naturally occurred, just makes it all the better, really. So yeah, that is where my character, formerly known as Sheer, now known as Shrey, is at, and she's a lot better for it. And it's been really cool. It's been a really fun personal arc. So now I've just got to try and work out how to do personal arcs that are satisfying for the campaign that I run, which I don't know how I'm going to manage that. This won't be the last of these videos, by the way, because we're still going to actually fight all of this stuff and see if we can save the world, which we might be able to, maybe. So there will be more of these, but that is where my character, Shrey Tala, is at the moment. Not quite as mental, a lot happier, and an actual general in an actual army, which is badass. So yeah, thank you very much for watching. Feel free to click any of the things, Patreon, subscribe, all that stuff. Click it if you like, don't if you don't want to, and I will see you for the next one. Toodaloo.